Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Live Magic Q&A. This is the free Live Magic Q&A tea party with me, Madame Pamita, and always every week, a special guest. We meet up every Sunday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, 7 p.m. Central, 8 p.m. Eastern. We record this as a live, free Zoom webinar each Sunday, and then later on, I will post that recording up on YouTube. So if you're seeing this on YouTube, and you want to get into the live session, you want to get into the actual clubhouse, talk with other people, ask us questions and so on, you can do that. You just have to be a member of the Spell Squad. And to be a member of the Spell Squad, all you have to do is go to spellsquad.com, sign up for my newsletter, and you will get the link to join us. That link is good for every Sunday throughout all eternity and every Sunday that we meet. And you will get that link, and then you can join us any Sunday that you like at that same time. The first Sundays of the month, however, I am doing paid classes now, paid workshops. These are 90-minute to 2-hour workshops that are very focused, intensives. They're very, very cool workshops. The next workshop is going to be the first Sunday. They take place every first Sunday, and the first Sunday in October is October 4th. And that is going to be a workshop on making friends with the scary tarot cards. So we've got a lot of tarot energy going on right now. We're going to be talking about the tarot cards that are scary, then the swords cards and the devil card and the tower card, all those cards that people, the death card, all the cards that people don't generally like to see. And we're going to be talking about the bright side of those cards, what those cards can mean and what messages those cards have for you that aren't scary messages at all. So I hope you'll join me. And if you want to join in on that, you can go over to parlorofwonders.com, my website, check out and go under learn, and then click the link that says make magic with me. Those are all the workshops that I'm offering coming up, and you'll see those there. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you? I'm Madame Pamita, in case you're wondering who I am. And my guest this week is Paige Ozma Ashmore, who is an amazing artist and has created a beautiful deck called Tarot of the Kingdoms. She, like I, has been doing tarot and doing tarot readings for decades, and has been an artist all your life, right, Paige? You've been an artist all your life. Yes. And so decided at some point, got the nudge, everyone would say to her, well, you're a tarot reader and you're an artist. Why aren't you making a deck? And so she finally took that nudge and made an amazing deck, Tarot of the Kingdoms. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, well, let's ask you a question about, like, you want to tell that story of how you finally ended up making this deck. What happened with you when you were getting that nudge? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So what happened was I had a lot of friends asking me, you should make a deck, you should make a deck. And I thought, well, I don't know. There's so many decks out there. What do I have to say about tarot that hasn't already been said? And as a witch, I've always worked closely with the elemental kingdoms. And I've good communication with them. And so I felt them coming in and saying, well, we have things to share about the cards and what they mean. And so the point for this deck, my whole goal with it was not just as a tool of divination, but I want people who purchase it to develop their own relationships with these beings. Like, what is it like to have conversations with dragons or the tree spirits or any of the other beings? That's my goal, is to encourage that. And so I just started channeling everything. And what was fascinating is I got downloaded all of these interesting stories. And one of them, in the Major Arcana particularly, I was watching a science show later after this one card, after I downloaded the Tower. And the science show was talking about everything that I had downloaded that I had no knowledge of scientifically. So it was really interesting.
It's amazing. I mean, first of all, it comes in this gorgeous, beautiful package, the Tarot of the Kingdoms. It's this nice, sturdy, really sturdy package. You know how they, in the olden days, we would get our decks and they would come in those flimsy playing card packets. I would just throw those things away. But this is a package that's like it's got a little magnetic hinge on it. Sorry, my background is messing up the thing. I have to hold it right in front of me. It's got a magnetic hinge on it. It's a really sturdy box. It's almost like a cigar box. Like, that's how sturdy it is. And then inside, of course, you have a beautiful booklet that has, of course, the explanations of the cards and some guidance for doing readings and beautiful guidance for beginning readers, which we'll talk about in a second, but also full color illustrations of each of the cards and the meaning of each of the cards, which I love. I have to tell you the things, there are so many things as a reader that I get very picky about the decks that I like to work with. You probably know this too. And that's why I think this was a deck that wasn't just made by an artist, but an artist who's a reader, because I can tell you put some thought into some of the things that can be a really enhancing thing for a reading, or can drive you crazy if it's not there. One of the things that I love is that the cards are nice and big. You know, if you get these little teeny tiny cards, you can't see the details, and the details can sometimes be very important in a reading. You can notice, oh, you know, there's a little shell here, or there's a little something that jumps out at you, and you want to be able to see those details. So these beautiful, beautiful illustrations that you created, we can see the details in the art, which I love. I also love that the texture of the cards, you probably didn't have, I don't know if you did have or didn't have a say in that, if they just decided for you.
I
Did
had
you have a say?
more say than I thought I would have. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is the thing that drives me crazy, is cards that stick together, and it
Yeah.
will drive me bananas. And these cards are very matte. They're almost like uncoated cards. I'm sure they have some kind of, but they don't have that sticky plastic coating that makes the cards stick together. So they shuffle beautifully. They're nice and thick cards, and they're just, the texture feels really good. You don't have to, you know, try to spread them out. They spread out gorgeously. You can do everything with them. And that's one of the things that as a reader, it drives me bananas when the cards stick together, because, you know, then it's kind of artificially preventing you from getting to the card that you need to get to. If you're doing a spread out like that, or if you're shuffling, it sort of makes it clunky when you're trying to work with a card. Another thing that you may or may not have planned, but is something that I always look for, is, does the back have a top and a bottom? For people who don't read reversals, this is great, because we can look and we can see which side is up and which side is down. And so you always, even if you do read with reversals, you're starting with your first card right side up if you want to read reversals, so that you're starting in a way that makes the reversals meaningful. If you start like this and you're reading all the cards upside down, they're all reversed cards, that's not reading correct. To me, that's not reading correctly. Then you're not reading with reversals. So let's talk about the images on the cards. So the beautiful thing I love about this deck is I'm a spiritualist. And so I love working with spirits. I love working with elementals. I love working with spirits. I love talking with spirits, communing with them. And so this card is very spirit oriented. It's got fairies, it's got angels, it's got dragons, it's got merfolk, it's got tree spirits. It's got these things that I'm working with all the time. And so, like you said, it's such a great tool for connecting to those beings and connecting to those worlds. So for people who like to work in those worlds, shamans, people who are fae witches, and so on, this is like the perfect deck, because it connects you to that. Another thing I love about it is, when we think about the Rider-Waite-Smith, which I love the Rider-Waite-Smith, don't get me wrong, deck I use often. But the Rider-Waite-Smith, when you get into the swords, as we're going to talk about in my workshop coming up, the swords cards are challenging. It can be very, very challenging. That's the whole element of air. So someone who's an air sign, or someone who identifies with air elementals, why do you get all these crappy cards? You know what I mean? It's not very fair, is it? So there's just some beautiful, beautiful, magical, gorgeous, inspired, channeled art. You know, I think it's very, do you channel when you do art? Are you kind of, yeah, it's so, so beautiful. You can just tell. I mean, I just look at it, and I had a hunch that you were channeling sort of magical images, and they were kind of telling you what to create. You know, they wanted to speak through you, through this beautiful art in this deck. That we have a fire being, fire angel, so, so beautiful. So I just love this deck, and I encourage everyone, they can get this deck on most of the regular places, right? They can get it.
It's being sold on Amazon. Barnes & Noble has it. Also, you can ask your local bookseller, because I'm really a big supporter of indie bookstores. So ask them to carry it.
It's so good. It's a really good plan if you guys do that. If you want to make your dollars, you know, really work in a way that is bringing positivity into the world. I mean, I think we want to support our small businesses, because those are the places too that people like Paige and I can come when things open up again, we can come to those places and do events and do signings and do readings and do classes and things like that. So we want to keep those mom and pop, you know, brick and mortar stores open as well. So it's so anyway, this deck is an amazing deck. So one of the things that I know that you talk about in the book is you talk about how to read tarot for a person who hasn't ever read tarot before.
Mm-hmm.
You have this beautiful page that you talk about how to read tarot if you're just beginning. Chapter 1, if you're just beginning. Do you want to share that with everyone?
Okay, well, when I used to read at the Renaissance Festival, I would get teenagers that would come and get readings, and they always wanted to learn how to read cards. And I loved getting teenagers because they're so open. And what I would do is I would just have them pretend that they're going to go see a movie. They're going to see a movie. They don't know what's out there, but they're just going to pick the movie based on a movie poster. And then what I would do, they didn't know this part, is I would ask a question about my life. And I would have them go through the deck and have them pick a card. And then just flip it over and look at the picture like it's a movie. Tell me what kind of movie it is. What's in it? You know, how do you think the movie's going to end? Is it an adventure or romance? And every single time I had them do that, they were dead on their readings. And they're like, well, this is what I see. And they said, oh, wow. And then they'd be interested, you know, because that's what their movie was. And then at the end, I tell them, well, you actually just read for me, and it was totally accurate.
Oh my gosh.
And you should see them just light up. They would just light up.
Yeah, I think that when I was learning, and maybe this was the case too for you, you know, I picked up my first deck. My mom bought me my first deck when I was 10.
Mm-hmm.
I picked it out at Lori Cabot's shop in Salem, Massachusetts. I picked out a tarot deck. That's what I wanted. And she bought it for me. But I got home and I got the little white book, and it was so dense. Like, that book is really, really esoteric. Like, still to this day, I look at it and some of the things I'm like, how does he come up with that? You know, how did A.E. Waite come up with that? But whatever. I have my issues with the little white book. But I thought, oh, I have to memorize these cards, and I have to memorize what A.E. Waite has put in the little booklet, and that's how you do a reading. And in reality, that's not opening up your intuition. Your interpretation of a card is just as valid as A.E. Waite's. And when I've taught tarot and I've had tarot students, the interpretations that they've come up with the cards are always enlightening to me. They'll notice things that I've never noticed. They'll come up with interpretations that I've never thought of, but that totally makes sense. And so your explanation of, like, look at the card as like a movie poster. So here we have 8 of fire, which is 8 of wands, but 8 of fire, right? So what is that movie poster? What's happening in that movie poster? And if you can read the picture and see the interaction between the people and talk about what this means, you can do a reading, right? It's so beautiful. I love that. I love what that part of your book is. So, I mean, the whole book and the whole deck is amazing, but I love that. I'm like, oh, that empowers people to be able to do readings themselves, and to trust themselves, and to trust their intuition. So gorgeous. So are you working on any other art projects? I see you have a beautiful Instagram. And your Instagram is Layla Genie, right? Yes. So I'm gonna type it into the chat. So if you want to follow Paige's Instagram, let me get all panelists and attendees. Layla Genie. It's Instagram.com/Layla Genie. And I think I put it correctly there.
Yep, that's right.
Oh, except I put 2 M's in Instagram. People don't, Instagram only has 1 M. I spelled your name right, but Instagram wrong. Anyway, if you go to Instagram and follow, you can see Paige's beautiful, amazing, magical, inspired, and channeled spiritual, magical art. It's just beautiful. Everything you do, I think, is just gorgeous and beautiful and inspired. So you post a lot of art and beautiful things on your Instagram. Are there any projects that you're working on now? Any new projects that you're working on in particular?
Well, right now, what I've just finished up is I do soul portraits. And so that's where I do a reading for somebody, and I do like, there's usually 3 or 4 past lives in the report that I send back. And it's just a portrait of the person's soul energy. They always come out different. So that's one of the things I'm always working on is that.
Ah, I love that. I love that. And if they wanted to get a soul, if someone wanted to get a soul portrait, would they contact you on Instagram or would they contact you elsewhere?
I have a lot of people that do contact me through Instagram. My email address is lailagenie@gmail.com. So it's, and you can contact me through that. And then just put in the subject line, soul portrait, or, whatever your question is.
Oh, so gorgeous. So today we're going to be answering some questions. We're going to be answering questions about magic. We're going to be answering questions about tarot. We're going to answer questions about art, channeled art. You're also going to be giving away a little mini reading, doing a little mini reading at the end. So I'm going to ask you, Paige, what's your favorite emoji?
Oh, wow. I like the star.
The star. Okay. So if you want to be in the raffle that we have for the little mini reading at the end, put a star emoji or write the word star, type in the word star into the chat. And then at the end of the show, we'll pick someone at random and we'll have you be the person that gets the reading at the end. So are you ready to jump into some questions? I might have some questions for you too, but let's, yes, everybody's putting their stars or writing the word star. This is perfect. So let's jump into some questions about magic, about tarot, and see what we get to. Bruce has a question. Now this is kind of an opinion question and also maybe some insight about this. Bruce wants to know, can spells be enhanced if multiple people, perhaps even thousands of people, perform them simultaneously with the same goal? What is your thought? Pardon?
Can what be enhanced?
If you do a spell with one person versus multiple people, lots of people, thousands of people, what is your thought about that?
About doing it on your own as opposed to other people?
Yeah.
Well, I'm solitary as a witch, so I'm always doing magic on my own. And do I find it's more powerful? I would say once you have your connection with your spirits and your guides, it's not just you. When you're doing magic, you're always in partnership. So you're in partnership with whatever spirits you're working with or deity, so it's not just you. So they are also coming into the picture. So if you're somebody that really is diligent with your practice, you can whip out some really strong stuff because there's focus with that. And there's discipline with making sure that it happens the way you want it to. With groups, like if you have a group that really clicks, you can do amazing stuff. But if you've got personality differences in there, sometimes it's a little screwy. You can lose.
Well, yeah, I agree. And you know what's interesting is I think about that question, and I think about, well, when does that apply? An adept magician like you, Paige, like someone who's been practicing for a long time, can do phenomenal work with just your spirits and you to be I'm a solitary practitioner too, because probably you have mastered the ability to keep your focus and to keep your attention on the goal and not get wobbly, what I call being wobbly about the intention of your spell. So if you're manifesting, let's say you're manifesting getting your deck published, you're focused on that, your intention is on that, you might light a candle, you might meditate on it, you might do any number of things to just focus on that goal of getting an amazing publishing deal for your deck. Just throwing that as an example. Don't know if you did or you didn't, but
yeah, I did.
and you got a gorgeous, amazing deck as a result. I think that for me, an adept magician can do great work. Now, if you get a bunch of adept magicians coming together, that can be, like you said, like a coven of witches coming together who are all adept and all focused and don't get wobbly with their intention. When I say wobbly, I mean like, I want that thing, but what if I don't deserve it? I want it. Oh, but it's never going to happen. That's a wobble to me. Like you're going one step forward and one step backward. And so you're vibrating. It's not like a laser beam focused. It's like it's all over the place, right? Like a traditional deck, 5 of Wands energy, everybody's all over the place, right? So I think that when you have maybe have a curated group of people working with together, that can be amazing. If you're a newbie at doing magic, I think it can be helpful to have someone do magic beside you,
Yes.
like training wheels, right?
Mhm.
Because most newbies are going to be wobbly, right? Just like learning to ride a bike, you know, you're going to be like, "Ooh, I don't know, does magic work? Did I
Mhm.
do the spell right?" And so on. That can also make you feel, um, can make you feel like back and forth a little bit, right? They're
Yeah.
not sure and they're not confident with magic. That's, I think, that the hallmark of an adept is that you're confident in magic. You know magic works. You trust your magic,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
So I think that in cases where you're new to it, or maybe it's something where there's a lot of emotion around it, sometimes that a lot of emotion can be a real positive, right? If you want that deck to be published, you want it more than anybody else in this world, right? That's something you want more than anybody. And that emotion of desire can be really positive. But if you get into the emotion of desire with a mix of fear,
Mhm.
oh, I want that lover, but what if they don't like me? I want that lover, but what if I'm not cute enough or
Yeah.
whatever, you know? Those things can set you back and forth. And in that case, bringing in somebody else who may be not so attached to the outcome as you can be helpful, you
Mhm.
know? Have someone do a spell for you, a reputable person do a spell for you, or have someone you both do the spell together. I think is the ideal, where you're doing some spell work as a newbie and somebody who's more experienced and feels confident in your spell work, whether that's a friend who's more experienced in spell work, or you hire someone to do a spell for you and you two do it together. It can be a
Mhm.
very beautiful thing to support. Yeah.
Yes.
So
Well, I
that's,
started out with a coven.
yeah.
That's how I was originally trained with a coven, and got initiated through all the degrees, and then ran my own coven for several years, and then everybody pretty much moved, and so I decided to be solitary at that point.
Yeah, I did too. That's how I began, was with working with a larger group. And then I
Mhm.
had a small coven of amazing sisters that I still am in touch with them today. It's amazing that I'm still in touch with them, but we don't practice. Everyone, like you said, everyone scatters, everyone
Yeah.
moves. And at the time, you know, when we were all doing magic together, you know, if you were doing magic in a group, you were doing magic in person, you know. Now everyone's gathered and gone different places. I suppose you could all get it back together now since everyone's doing anything virtually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. No kidding.
So so I agree. So now when we talk about, like, you know, the second part of Bruce's question is like, if thousands of people, so we think about things like um you know, stopping, you know, binding spells or hexes or things like that, where thousands of people are coming together to
Mhm.
do, let's say, group hex or a group binding or something like that. I think those things can work really well, but you also don't know those thousands of people. If you're all doing, you know, if you put out a public call for everybody to come and do a hex, you know, you don't know that who you're working with or how good they are, or are they doing
What kind of
something.
picks they're even doing? There's a lot of them.
Yeah, yeah. So I think there's things where I think I think knowing the person that you're working with is probably the ideal.
Mhm.
Public work where you don't know who all is there, it's not going to hurt anything, but it may not be quite as effective because you don't know who you're working with, and do they have wobbly intentions or do they have really strong,
Mhm.
clear intentions, you know? Can they
Right.
hold the vision, or do they get caught up in the fear of the spell not working, you know? Which is, I think, the biggest hindrance to spell work, is to get into that fear, oh, my spell isn't working.
Mhm.
So yeah, yeah. When you were how long did it take you? I want to ask you a little question. How long did it take you to do the deck, put this together, to do, I mean, 78 cards is a lot of
Mhm.
art. It's a
Mhm.
little daunting.
Yeah, and there's 2 extra cards in the deck too, so there were 80 of them.
80. Wow.
It took me 2 years to do all of the art, but to put the whole thing together, like write the book and do all the graphic stuff, was about 10 years.
Oh my gosh. It's
So it was a
amazing.
long, long time. And then I didn't know what to do with it. at first I thought, well, maybe I'll try to self-publish it, but I really wanted to go with a regular publisher. And so what I did, like after I did my magic for this to happen, is I let it go because the deck has its own life. Whatever it is, it has its own destiny. I don't know where it's meant to go or what it's meant to do. So I just totally let that go. Whatever how it wanted to reveal itself was going to be, I had to be fine with whatever it was.
It is just, I think that is a beautiful way. That's a magic in a nutshell, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right there is that you set an intention, you set a focus for your spell work, and then you let it go.
Mm-hmm.
You let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that too, it's like that the deck has such life to it. You can just feel the energy of this deck right from the beginning. When you look at the artwork and connect to the artwork, you can feel the energy of this deck and the life that it has. And of course, all of these beautiful spirits that wanted to be heard, seen, honored, recognized through your artwork are not going to sit and go, okay, well, let's let that sit in your desk drawer.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're going to want to push it forward as well,
Uh-huh.
And so they're going to either keep nudging you until you do something with it, or they're going to coordinate or make things happen on the spirit realm so that it does happen, right?
Right.
I think it's super magical. It's such a beautiful deck. All right. So Jen has a question about tarot. Okay. I've been shuffling my deck in a very general way, and the card that falls out while shuffling is the answer. How do you recommend? So she's been doing the cards jumping out thing.
Okay.
So how do you recommend shuffling and choosing cards?
Okay. So what I do actually a combination of riffle shuffling, which is how you shuffle plain cards, and then just shuffling that way, which is what most tarot readers use.
So riffle is
yeah.
Way, and then
and these cards are easier to do that way because they just kind of fall nicely in. I don't have to bend them or anything. I think it's a matter of personal taste. Like I will look at jumpers myself. I'll say, okay, it's just something, a special note, like pay attention to this, go on about your business, but look at this. I have friends who've been reading as long as I have who just think, oh, if a card falls out, it means I'm a sloppy shuffler. So I think it's a matter of what resonates with you. And that's really the heart of reading and the heart of magic. What feels right to you when you're doing it? So try, like if you have a jumper and you stick it back in the deck, how does that feel to you? You don't know what it looks like. Does that resonate with you, or do you have this need to know what it is? So do what feels right to you.
I think so too. I mean, I always kind of pay attention. If I'm doing a reading for someone else, I'll make a mental note of that card, and then I'll put it back in to see if it pops up again in the reading. If I'm shuffling, I'm continuing to shuffle. I think there's so many ways. Like your Paige's advice is right on. Your advice is right on, which is that you have to find the way that works for you. I think that like when I'm doing party readings, back in the days when we used to do party, not happening now, but when I used to do live parties in person, I won't even shuffle. I spread the cards out, like I fan the cards out on the table, and I have the person come up and pick 3 cards out, because we don't have time for shuffling and doing all that jazz. So, when you're in a party, you're going to be with the person for 3 minutes. I don't want to waste 2 of those minutes shuffling cards. So I fan the cards out and I ask them to pick 3 cards, and they just pick 3 cards. And that is a very intuitive way. It's a completely legitimate way that involves no shuffling. I mean, you could shuffle before you spread them out, but you don't have to shuffle. You can shuffle like that. The riffle shuffle, you can also shuffle like, Paige says the other way of shuffling is like this. I do both as well. I do both of those when I'm doing a reading for someone. I riffle shuffle, but it depends on the deck too. Like these shuffle really beautifully. These shuffle really well. Some decks don't shuffle so well. And so you kind of have to do the stack shuffle like this, because that's all you can do, and the cards stick together, as I talked about before, my pet peeve. But these, by the way, fan beautifully. When you spread these out, they just spread so gorgeously. It's just, they're just like butter. I like butter. So there's no right or wrong way. What I recommend is going to get readings from readers and see what their routine is in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I learned, is by going to reading. So I was kind of like, okay, I'll do this. And then I would go to a reading with a reader and I'd say, oh, they're wrapping the cards before they start. Oh, and I'd say, what are you doing? Oh, I'm knocking the energy off the past reading. Oh, I like that. I'm going to try that. And so now I do that. I tap my cards before I start with a new person.
Mm-hmm.
I clear the cards before I start with a new person. And I just sort of look at them face up and sort them into 3 stacks, then bring them back together. Those are all things that are personal to me. You can do them or not do them. I never say to anybody, my way is the right way and another way is the wrong way. But, you know, I think going to other readings, going to get readings from other readers is a great education. If you're a reader, you can see what other people do. You can learn other meanings of the cards. You can ask questions. If you're with a nice reader, you can ask questions. Well, why did you say that 7 of Swords means I have to go out and hustle? Where do you get that from? You know, and they'll explain it to you where they get it from. So, all right. So let's see what else we've got. In the meantime, we have another question here. Julie asks a question: when should one feel confident during a spell to let go of the spell and wrap things up with the spell? Is that that's probably a case by case basis, but when should one feel confident during a spell to let go of a spell and wrap things up with a spell? Let's just talk about that concept of letting go.
I personally have found that letting go has been key to having my magic really pop. It's kind of like you're writing a letter to the universe and then you're mailing the universe, but what if you hung on to the letter and you're like, oh, I don't know if I said it. Did I say everything? So you never actually stick the letter in the mailbox, and that's where it goes into the unseen world to work its magic and come in. So I agree. I do think it's a case-by-case basis. For me, like when I'm doing candle magic, what I'll usually do is, like, if I carve anything on a candle and then, you know, and I let it burn, and I usually put I put it on a plate because I might want to read the wax afterwards and see what it does. What is it telling me about how this is going to manifest? And then at that point, when I do the reading on the wax, you know, I release it and let it go because it's giving me some extra information.
That's perfect. Yes, and it's I'll give a little plug here. My book, The Book of Candle Magic, is coming out October 8th, and I talk about reading wax, I talk about reading smoke, I talk about reading flame, I talk about all of it. So not only how to do spells and create spells, but what do you look at after, while they're burning or after they're burning. So if you're wanting to learn about that or learn more about that, that book is going to be a great resource for, not you, Paige, because you already know how to do it, you guys out there. But yeah, I think there's I think there's things that you can add to your incantations or your spell words that can help you get there. So one of the things that I love to do is say, like, the perfect outcome and perfect timing. So that I'm just really kind of almost like, you take care of it, universe, right? I want the perfect outcome and perfect timing. So I'm not going to fret about, is it happening this week or next week? Unless it's something that needs to happen that week. But, you know, most spells, you can put it out there and just say, okay, you handle it, right? That's the letting go part. It's not letting go like I'm never going to have it. That's one kind of letting go, but that's not what we are talking about when we say do a spell and let it go. We're talking about let your deities handle it. Let your spirits handle it. Let the universe handle it. Let God or goddess handle it. You don't have to worry about the details. You put in the request, you're going to get the thing back, the confidence in getting the thing back. You don't have to worry about the timing. You don't have to worry about the details. You don't have to worry about how it's going to happen or every single step of that path. So that's that kind of letting go. I think about, like, you know, if you're putting an order, you're at a restaurant, you put your order in the restaurant, you don't go back into the kitchen and look over the chef's shoulder, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no, you're going to get in the chef's way and you're going to get in trouble and you're going to get kicked out and you're not going to get a meal. Well, it's the same thing with spell work. You just put it out there and then kind of, I say, like, set it and forget it. Or, you know, like, put a cake in the oven. You don't open the oven door every 2 minutes to check on your cake. You wait 20 or 30 minutes, then you check on your cake, right? So that's that concept of the letting go that happens. And that can happen immediately. You know, that can happen immediately. It can happen when you pick up your spell remains. If you're doing a candle spell has a beginning and an end, right? That's the beauty of a candle spell, is it's not ongoing spell work. It's like there's the beginning and there's the end. And from that end point, I can now just let it go, whatever that is, doing the reading, the candle finish burning, or whatever you set as that end point. Other spell work, like carrying a charm bag or a mojo bag, or putting a essential oil on yourself or something like that, it may be ongoing work, but the same thing, you kind of put it out there and just let the universe handle it. That's the letting go part. That's so beautiful. Yeah. I love the wax reading part too. The wax reading, when you do your wax reading, what are you looking, I mean, what are you doing? What is it for you, wax reading?
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll check the candle burning several times, because the wax is going to do different things. So it might start moving in one direction the first hour, but then the second hour, it like totally changes course and does something totally different.
Yeah.
I also have to make sure it's on an even surface, because sometimes if it's tilted, that's going to affect it. But I'll check it a few times, and usually I'll take pictures of it with my phone, because I'm not going to remember, you know, what it looks like. But I just kind of get a whole view of the picture, and sometimes I'll get really gestalt with it. So what that means is, for example, tea leaf reading. If you look at any tea leaf reading book and you look at it and you look up, say, the image of a ring always means a contract or a marriage or whatever. You know, that certain images always mean certain things. I taught a class on tea leaf reading once, and there are a lot of Native Americans in the audience, and we were talking about turtle, which I believe in tea leaf reading doesn't have the best interpretation, but to them, to these Pimas, turtle is the foundation of the world. So what I said is, whatever your personal symbols are, you're going to have an emotional connection with that. It's like reading clouds in the sky. You can do the same thing. The sky can be a teacup. You can ask yourself a question, go outside, open your eyes on a cloudy day. What's the first cloud you see? What shape is it in? How do you feel about that shape? If I see a dog, I know I'm going to be having some really great interactions with friends. But I've got a girlfriend who's terrified of dogs because she's been attacked twice when she was a kid, so she is not going to get that read if she sees a dog in the clouds. So I don't know if that answers your question, but like in
It
wax,
totally answers.
I'll
Yeah.
look at shapes and how do I feel about that shape? How, you know, what is that telling me? Like there's some things, like if you get like petals or plumes, that might mean certain things, but I see pictures in the wax a lot. I'll see like angelic beings or just faces. It's interesting.
I think of that being kind of like having a conversation with the candle talking back to you and telling you additional information. So whatever way you read, whether it's reading the symbols in the card, seeing symbols, or you're looking at the way the wax flows, or if there's wax that wouldn't flow or didn't burn or things like that, it's a way of conversing with the candle, and it can give you your next steps. Even if you see something challenging, like you're the person that doesn't jive with dogs and you see a dog image, what does that tell you about your spell intention? What does that tell you about your next steps? And do you need to do something else, or do you need to just let it be, or what, is there an obstacle you have to overcome still, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Like if your interpretation, and by the way, that same thing, even with tea leaf readings, there's traditional sort of tea leaf symbols, but when I teach tea leaf reading, I don't teach traditional symbols. I teach you and your association with that. So, for someone, acorn, a shape of an acorn might mean food. Another person might mean, oh, it's the start of some big project, or, oh, it's going to take a long time to do something, or whatever, it can mean a lot of different things, but just like tarot, it's your story and your channeled information. So I think there's some synchronicity in what you understand forward for now. So it's interesting to see different people's different interpretations of things. I love that conversation that you have with candles, that you're working with these, I call them allies. The candle is your ally in your spell intention. You don't need a candle to do a spell. You can do magical work with just pure intention and thought. But this candle is another way of bringing support to your spell intention because you're bringing in color and you're bringing in numbers if you're into numerology, and you're bringing in herbs and you're bringing in oils and so on and so forth, symbolic shapes and all of that, to help support your intention and help it go forward and give it some extra juice, you know? So when you have that conversation back, when the candle tells you, okay, we set it out there for that, but this either whether you want to believe it's the candle, your spirits, or whoever that are sending you a message back through that candle, you can have a two-way conversation. It's not just the one-way conversation. So let's see, we have another question. NL wants to know, do you let other people touch your cards? What's your rules about letting people touch your cards?
I've gone back and forth with that. I used to let people shuffle, and then I stopped because they would grind my cards together, and I kept having to replace decks. So now I do all the shuffling, and then I just have them cut, and then that's all I have them do.
Same girl, same. I think, like, you know, in terms for me, I always feel like if someone invites you to touch a deck, it's fine. I once was, you know, I would do parties a lot back in the day, and I once was doing a party, and it was at a public place, and people would come up and pay some money to have a reading. And there were people drinking and partying and doing whatever. And I go to the bathroom, and I come back to my table, and there's some lady playing with my cards. And I'm like, no, no, that's not okay. You weren't invited. You just sat down and you took it upon yourself to touch my cards. That's not okay. But if you're sitting down for a reading and you are cutting the cards, or if the reader hands the cards over to you to touch them, I feel like that's an intimate experience that kind of ties you in. But if you're having a reading with someone, it's an intimate experience. So it's kind of up to the reader. Some readers will never let anyone touch their cards. I had the same thing though, where I was going through every 6 months, I was having to buy a new deck because the cards, because people go like, I'm not going to do it with these because I don't want to wreck them, but they go like, try and get them in there. And it really wrecks the edges of the cards. So, you know, make sure. So make sure, or they didn't know how to shuffle and they would bend the cards, you know, people don't know how to shuffle. So it kind of takes the pressure off of them if you shuffle anyway. But then having someone cut the cards, they're not going to wreck your cards by cutting the cards. So they can cut them in 3 and then restack them back into 1, or cut them into whatever and restack them. And then they get to sort of make a choice, you know, about when I'm shuffling for people, and even in live scenarios or online, I will say to people, I'm going to shuffle, you tell me when to stop. So they also have some kind of input into that card shuffle in that way too. But it's really your call whether you let people touch it or not. But myself personally, I feel like you have to be invited to touch in some way. Not just, I would never go up to somebody else's setup and start playing with their cards. You know, that would feel weird, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Right? That would be super weird and rude. But this drunk lady, you know, she didn't know what she's doing. So you better believe though, I smudged those cards afterwards. I burned incense and I cleaned them up afterwards, because I was like, who's this rando touching my cards? All right. So let's see. Oh, Amy has got a message. Amy says, I'm interested in affirmation magic. I've been making up affirmations based on cards I get in readings. I repeat my affirmations 9 times each. Are there other things that I can do?
Oh, that's an interesting thing. Okay. Sometimes what I'll do, like how I do my affirmations with cards, is I have a crystal that has, like it's got 5 sides to it, and one of the faces is bigger, so that's like a manifester. So what I do is I'll flip the card over, and then I'll put that crystal on top of it with intention that I'm manifesting what that card is about.
That's beautiful.
So I don't actually speak anything, but I'll just put the crystal on it.
That's beautiful. I love that. I mean, that's a way you can do that. There's a couple ways you could do that. You could pull a card consciously that you go like, oh, you know, Knight of Earth. I want to manifest a business. So I'm going to pull this card out on purpose. Or you could do, you know, a random shuffle and pull a card and see what that comes up. And if it's something you want to bring in more of, like the Fool, I want to bring more openness, more trust, more new beginnings or whatever, then you could do it that way too. That's a beautiful way of doing it. I love that. That's gorgeous. In my book, the Madame Pamita's Magical Tarot, which is my tarot book, I have affirmations for each of those cards. You can use those affirmations, or you can make up your own affirmations. You know, you can look at the card and see what inspires in you, read what the creator of the deck says about that card and how does it apply to you, and then come up with your own, you know, your own interpretation or your own affirmation. I think of affirmations being spells. Affirmations are just spells.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the 80s they started getting called affirmations. Before that, they were spells.
Yeah. I was reading Shakti going, I'm like, this is witchcraft.
I know. What's really interesting is, like, you know, we've been doing magic for a long time. I've been doing magic since the 90s, since, you know, for a while. And, well, I mean, that's like even educated magic. Before that, in the 80s and the 70s, I was doing magic, but I didn't know what the heck I was doing. I was a kid, you know, I read Sybil Leek's book and I'm like, okay, I turn around 3 times and bow to the moon. Okay, that makes me a witch now. You know, I mean, I didn't know what I was doing. But I think we see like things when you've been around a long time, you can kind of see things trend and things come and go. And like, I'm sure you relate to this one. It's like Mercury retrograde, only since like the social media opening up has Mercury retrograde been like Chicken Little, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, Paige, here's a quiz. What did we used to say about, before all this social media, what did people used to say about Mercury retrograde back in ye olden days?
They didn't really, nothing.
Or
Yeah.
it's like, don't sign a contract. Just wait till the Mercury retrograde's done before you sign your new contract for something. That's about it, the extent of it. And then all of a sudden people started, you know, somebody started something about Mercury retrograde. And now every time there's a Mercury retrograde, oh my God, I'm going to pull my head under the covers. People are freaking out. And it's like, oh my gosh, you guys, Mercury retrograde is a great time. It's a great time to go back and fix something. It's a great time to go back and redo something. It's not like it's bad. It's just bad for something new. It's bad for, you know, you might have to slow down a little bit. You might have to redo things a couple times. All right. You know, take it slow. Don't worry, you know, pay attention, be mindful is the message of Mercury retrograde, and, you know, go back and fix something that you've been putting off fixing for a while. Right. Okay, so are you ready? I'm going to ask one more question, but while I'm asking that question, I'm going to count how many stars we have that are wanting to be in the reading. And then while you're answering that, I'm going to get that number, and then I'm going to ask you to pick a number. So, all right, the question is from Jen. Aside from practicing doing it, how do you make connections with deities and spirits? This is a great question for you. Are there general stones or herbs or other things that can help encourage this?
The first thing is having the awareness that there are spirits out there. So when you're curious about it, they can respond with their own curiosity. I had a girlfriend who taught me how to see fairies. And she said, what you do is you want to plant a garden or take care of a plant or something like that. Because she said they're really interested in that when people do that. And I did that. And then I started seeing fairies after that. I saw one that was about 1 foot tall. She was dressed all in silver, had the big wings, like the thing you see in the picture. And she was just walking across the threshold of the door in my bedroom. And of course I jumped up. I'm like, oh my God, it's a fairy. So I jump up and I run, and she's gone by the time I get there. But that, you know, just being in tune with nature, even just wanting to go out, you don't even have to know a whole lot about nature. And you can have a black thumb, but if you're outside and you're appreciating nature or you're loving nature, you're going to get that kind of interest. So like with wind spirits, a lot of people miss that. And I'm not talking fairies, I'm talking wind spirits. So if you're outside and you're looking at a tree and just one part of the tree is bobbing up and down with the wind, there's a wind spirit there. It's playing with that one piece of the tree, like the rest of the tree is still, but it's moving wildly over here. That's a wind spirit. And so then you just kind of watch it. And then you'll see the tree kind of slow down a little bit, like, oh my God, this person can see me. So, and not that I could see a wind spirit, but I'm aware of its presence. And so then it'll jump around to the different things. But you just show up with love. You show up with love and understand that you're in this world with other beings. And our eyes can only see like, what, 2% of what's out there. So think of all the things we're surrounded with all the time that we can't see.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're a skeptic, you can't see radio waves, and radio waves are all around us all the time. You know, it's just because you don't have a radio turned on doesn't mean that there's not radio signals being sent out there. So the same thing with this, it's like turning on your radio, right? One of the things I advise people when they're first starting to get into seeing spirits or connecting with spirits is to let their rational mind give it something to do. So everyone does this. Everyone does. I have yet to meet the person that hasn't done this, where you go, oh, I saw this, or, oh my God, that's a thing, or, oh, it's a synchronicity, or whatever. Something magic happened. And then your rational mind comes in and goes, nah, you're making that up. So the trick is to tell your rational mind, okay, let me pretend that the magic happened. Let me pretend that I see fairies, because that will satisfy your rational mind so that it calms down. It feels heard. Because you need your rational mind for some things. It's not like, but it will feel heard. And then it frees you up to be in that playful place of magic. It frees you up to be in that place of trust and that connection to the spirit world. So it's like, let yourself do that. So like, I can remember being in Scotland, lots of fairies, of course, Scotland and England, and seeing these little tiny creatures, so small, right? Tiny. And I go, they're fairies. And then my rational mind goes, no, they're not, they're insects. And I go, let me believe that they're fairies and let me see what happens with that. And I just allowed myself that space to go, well, what I'm not close enough to see if they're bugs or if they're fairies. Let me believe that they're fairies. And when you start believing, it's like the opening happens, and then you start to see more and more, and magical things will happen for you. So there's a part of it all that's faith and trust, and trusting that. And that rational mind is helpful to us, but also something that you might want to be able to turn on and turn off when it's not convenient or not something that you want. All right. So we have 20 people that have entered the contest. So I want you to pick a number between 1 and 20, including 1 and 20. So
16.
16. All right. So that's.
I just popped in.
Good. So Becky is our winner. So I'm going to go into Becky. Hold on a second. And I'm going to turn on Becky. Let's see if I can get to you. Hold on. I'm going to turn on your, there you are. I'm going to turn on your microphone. Hi, Becky. Can you hear us? Hi, Becky.
Hello.
Hi. Do you have a question for a little mini reading that you'd like to ask?
I would like to know if I'm on the right path.
Okay, great question.
All righty, let's see what we have. Okay. So, oh, neato. I pulled 3 cards for you. The first one is the 9 of Fire. This card is all about trust. So this is an Asian dragon. They don't have wings like the European dragons. So, but they know they can fly. They just kind of lift on the air and they allow the wind currents to lift them. So this card is all about trust, trust in what you can't see. And then the third card I got was the 3 of Earth. So on this path, what I'm feeling is there's some kind of connection you're going to be either making with a community or with others. And that's validated because it's followed up by the 2 of Water, which is the mermaids. So you've got mermaids, tree people, and dragons all wanting to help you out here. So it seems like because you don't have the air part of it, so don't worry about what your thoughts are on it right now. Just use that drive that you have with the dragon energy, because the dragons are going to really help get you off the ground with this. I feel like you've got one around you, actually. It feels like a little blue dragon that's kind of flying around you. So that could be one of your guides, and you could talk to it and ask it for help. But I really feel with this that you're on the right path, but you might be questioning it due to some kind of fear.
Is that, I'm unmuting you, Becky. Oh, hold on. There we go. Can you, does that make sense to you?
Yes, it does.
That's beautiful. Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Beautiful to have that dragon. I was born in the year of the dragon, so I always.
Were you? Oh, cool.
Yeah. So I always identify with dragon. Oh, we might be the same age. Well, thank you so much, Paige, for being here and for sharing the insights you had about this beautiful, beautiful deck. For those of you who popped in late, let me share the box with you. It's called Tarot of the Kingdoms. I didn't even get to introduce you to Ozma, my Ozma. She's back here. Come here, come here, come here.
Kitty?
What?
Is she a black kitty?
She's black and white. Come here.
I saw her tail earlier.
Yeah. Let me get her. I'm starting to nickname her Nadja because she's like Nadja on What We Do in the Shadows. She bites me all the time. There's my Ozma. Look at, she's trying to bite me. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? That's my Ozma there. Well, next week thank you so much for joining us. This is Tarot of the Kingdoms, which is Paige's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful magical deck. And if you like connecting with spirits, if you're a person like me who loves connecting with spirits and elementals, if you want a deck that actually opens you up to lots of magic and opens you up to all the opportunities and the positivity of each card and what it can represent, this is a beautiful deck for that as well. Next week, my guest is going to be the Oracle Bomb, which is my dear friend Chelsea. She's called, her nickname online is the Oracle Bomb, and she's going to be here next week, and we're going to talk about magic, and we're going to talk about more divination stuff as well. It's divination month, I guess. Don't forget that we have every Sunday we meet here at the live Q&A, except for the first Sunday of the month. So the following Sunday, October 4th, is going to be my class, Making Friends with the Scary Tarot Cards. I thought I'd pick something fun for Halloween month. And I thought scary tarot cards, that's a good topic. So if you're interested in tarot, if you are a tarot reader, or if you are wanting to deepen your connection, or even if you're not a tarot reader and you're just curious, you can sign up for that on my website at parlorwonders.com under Learn. Click on Make Magic with Me, and you will find all the workshops coming up. Thank you again, Paige, for being here. Where can they find you again? They can find you where?
On Facebook, I have a Facebook group called Oracles and Enchantments, where I post a card of the day in the morning, and at night I will post some magic. So you can do that. It's a public group. And what I'm offering for anybody that's been watching this is from now till the end of September 2020, if you join my group and then mention this show, I will do a 1-card pull for you and send you your reading.
Oh, it's so sweet and very generous and very sweet. It was such a delight having you here. Oh my gosh.
Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you guys too for being here. All the Spell Squad members here in the clubhouse. It is so lovely to have you here. We love getting together every Sunday. I hope to see you next Sunday when the Oracle Bomb is here. Have a beautiful, amazing, magical week. And be sure to check out Tarot of the Kingdoms. It's such a gorgeous, amazing deck. You will fall in love with it just as I have fallen in love with it. Thanks again, Paige. Have a great week. Bye, everybody.
Bye.